Ireland. Um, Looking at today, Stephen from Level 3 here, obviously a lot of big things going on. You're leveraging some of the infrastructure in Ireland, obviously. Tell us about what you guys are doing with the Olympics, for instance, a big event that's coming up regionally, globally. And also, when you step back to looking at what you're doing for the Olympics, how does the ecosystem in Ireland play into that equation? And why are you leveraging it?
Yeah, I think it plays in a couple of different ways. Level 3 is doing a variety of things with Olympic delivery. The Vivix network, which you may be familiar with, the video transport network, we're doing some acquisition, encoding, transport of the live signals. The Level 3 CDN, we're doing some delivery, direct delivery to the end users. The linkage to Ireland, for those of you that might remember, is a company called Servcast. Today, you look at the way things are done from a streaming delivery perspective, and the big buzz is client-side telemetry, right? You want to know what the end user is actually experiencing. Who cares what our edge servers are doing? You want to know what that person is experiencing from a rebuffering perspective, or are they getting the full throughput that they can look at the highest resolution. Servcast was way ahead of that game. Some of the smartest people I've ever had the privilege of working with, and that was a firm that we acquired in Dublin. Really smart folks that put us in a position where we could deliver with good client-side telemetry and really understand what we were delivering to the end users.
Yeah. And then from the standpoint of infrastructure, obviously an acquisition opportunity, innovation taking place that you guys have leveraged. Looking at that client side, what are the key factors that make you decide how you're going to route out your network? How are you going to transport all of that content? What are the things that are on the top of your checklist that you have to check on?
Well, I mean, there's the immediate proxy of latency. Mm-hmm. You know, what is the latency between the edge network and the end user? But there's also some very innovative things being done now with the TCP stack, which, I mean, if you think about that, hasn't been touched since Vint-Cerf, right? A lot of the TCP stacks out there are suboptimal by design, right? They weren't necessarily designed to do what they're doing today. And so we're looking at TCP optimizations, single-ended TCP optimizations that actually impact not only the last mile, but what we like to call the last inch. They literally repair problems on people's wireless networks with collisions. And that is absolutely paramount to getting the very highest resolution video to the end user.
Absolutely, especially when they're expecting the page to load in 2 seconds, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Those optimizations help the small objects as well, and the web page loads.
Yeah. So now, when you look at these demands, huge amount of data you're already transporting, and then with an event like the Olympics, the demand is only going to go up in a geometric pace. So Ken, when you look at Hibernia, a huge backbone provider, transatlantic fiber, what kind of demands does that put on these type of big fiber pipes? And how are you guys addressing it? You know, what kind of throughputs are you getting today? And what are your thoughts on the future here?
When I bought the system in 2003, there was zero traffic on it. 360 Atlantic had built it, opened it, I think in May of 2001 and went bankrupt in June. And so when I got it in 2003, there was zero traffic. Today, we have about 50 gigabits per second going to the US and 500 going on to the UK and the continent. So obviously there's a clear preference for what people are doing with the traffic. If you're in Ireland and you want to go to North America, Hibernia is the only direct route that you can get there. And with the Kelvin project that we put in 2009, you can go out of the north or in Portrush area, or you can go out of Dublin. So the issue is really, there are a couple of things. We've got a lot of capacity. So in essence, bring it on. That's what we say. We're in favor
Excellent.
of as much video, and put that baby on. The there have been tremendous advances. When the systems were originally designed, the idea was, you know, that you'd have 10 gig waves. We have now implemented 40 G waves. 100 Gs are coming. And on a fiber pair, we probably, we aren't maxed out on any of the fiber pair. We have 8 fiber pairs. But we probably can get 1,250 10G waves. So we've got very adequate capacity on the big backbone that would take you to Europe or North America.
So that's good news. There's not going to be any bottlenecks here in the next few months then, the Olympics.
Not from that perspective, but that isn't getting to what Stephen was talking about, is what is the person experiencing when they are looking at something, because that's a completely different bottle.
And that's where what keeps Chris up late at night, probably. On the
Yeah,
AT&T side.
and what we're trying to do is to put or people in general who have content, you know, what I'd like to do is overburden the wireless networks, because I don't own any wireless networks. And
what do you think about that, Chris?
So people would want to have good
Yeah, we'll give you a guest
broadband.
mic.
They'd want to have good broadband, and that's been very rare
Yeah.
in Ireland, in my experience. I think that is a disappointment, probably for the 4 million people on the whole that live there, is that it's been a long time coming.
Well, perhaps an opportunity for those that are out there that are wanting to meet the gap then.
Yeah.
One of the points that you have to make, and it should be made over and over, is that we've had data centers in Ireland since 2000. 2005, we had data centers, occupied data centers, with big brand names on them. It's not necessarily the brass plate that matters, it's what they're doing with the data center. And up until very lately, 2008, 9, 10, and onwards, we were always disaster recovery, back office. Doesn't matter if it goes down, not real dollars being generated. You know, it's a good place to have it because we can avail of certain fiscal and taxation issues. 2009, big game changer. PayPal, eBay, Google themselves, Microsoft. Their big play is on the cloud. If it doesn't work out, it means dollars lost. If unavailability through either your network or your housing, it means money lost, direct money lost. Microsoft spent $650 million since 2007. Amazon, AWS, that's their baby in Dublin, the live version for EMEA. So we've changed. We always had data centers. They were never they were always a cost center. Now they're a profit center. Massive change in the whole dynamic. Not all data centers are the same, as you guys know. And the only reason that happened was because of their infrastructure, your infrastructure, and also the willingness of the companies that are there and their positive experience to go up and say, okay, well, if this doesn't work, I lose money, but I'm secure in knowing that the infrastructure is right.
And I think Digital Realty is one of those that set that direction off. I know that when, as part of the starting of Hibernia Atlantic, we sold a small web farm to Digital Realty and some additional real estate that they then went out and built out, and that's become the Aircom main data center. But I think you're doing other exciting things in Ireland.
Well, and you know, we don't take guesswork in terms of where we want to go deliver incremental data center space. We want to go where customers take us, and we want to recognize what customer demand will look like and what the network demand will look like, and then we want to go out and deploy data center as rapidly as we can. And so certainly Ireland has been a location where we have 2 existing developments, and we've very recently closed on yet a third, in that the customers we've sold through our first 2 developments were out of capacity, unfortunately, unlike your network, but we're now in a position where we need to very quickly and rapidly deliver incremental data center inventory so that these clients that want to expand in Ireland or that they want to come to Ireland for the first time have places where they can land.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, Joe, from the standpoint of Digital Realty Trust, I mean, talk about some of the investments you guys have made. Obviously, you've been pretty bullish in the country. And maybe explain for those that aren't familiar with Joe's company what you guys do. Why is it different than a traditional REIT?
So Digital Realty is we're a real estate investment trust. We operate globally, Asia, Europe, and 70% perhaps of our business here in North America, but with a very specific focus on the data center. We don't do office development or Class A or business park. We're very focused on the development specifically of the technical real estate and the data center. And our first two developments and investments in Ireland have sold through, and we've in fact been out of inventory for a little bit of time now. So we're rapidly trying to deploy. We've recently closed on a new development about 10 acres west of town, and I think it yields at its end state 12 megawatt of incremental new data center space, built in phases. So we're very rapidly trying to catch up with the inventory and the demand cycle that we see in Ireland right now, and our customers are asking us to hurry. They're asking us to move quickly because while we're building on spec, we see a significant demand cycle for new customers and our existing customer base that want to buy more data center space from Digital Realty. Right. So that's the nature of our business. We want to rapidly deploy. We want development sites with large power infrastructure, large fiber infrastructure. We found that the permitted and title process in Ireland has been very favorable to us, which enables us to deploy quickly. We recognize that a 3-4 year deployment cycle to be able to deliver you a compute environment it's unacceptable. The world can change dramatically in 3 or 4 years. We need to be in 8 months, 12 months. We need to be able to talk about Q1 of next year. We'll be able to deliver 5,000 meters of incremental white space for compute. And that's exactly where we are. Ireland, specifically in Europe, enables us the ability to deploy very rapidly.
Yeah. Great. Looking at where we are, what's going on in Ireland right now, what are some of the risks on the horizon or the opportunities? So maybe start with Joe and we can go around real quick.
Well, opportunities for us, again, because we can address the market very rapidly, there's a lot of transparency. The geopolitical risk and climate is very stable for us. So it's very predictive in our ability to scale. You can't say that as you get further into Central and Eastern Europe, you certainly can't make that representation. So for us, the opportunity is we know what we're getting. We know what it will cost. We know that there's no hidden gotchas. That we know there's no permit and entitlement and tax issues. The transparency enables us to make comfortably that incremental investment without wondering what's going to happen in 12 or 18 months.
Yeah, great. How about yourself, Gary?
One of the risks is that we don't keep going out and telling people that we've got this fantastic infrastructure and that we're open for business. We've lost a lot of planes flying directly over Ireland because due to the last 3 to 5 years of negative sentiment towards Ireland, and we need to be able to continuously be talking to people. That's why I spend my days talking to people about the two-tier economy. Our exports are flying. We're number 2 in software. We're number 2 in pharmaceuticals, but I wouldn't fancy being a plumber in Dublin. Yeah. But by promoting where there are jobs, by promoting what we do well, and these chaps here collectively have invested in the region of $1.5 billion since 2006, probably 2007, right bang in the middle of it. So the guys who have the dough are investing in the infrastructure. And I think it was very, very, very interesting to hear Adobe a couple of weeks ago announced in Davos that they were going to put an innovation center in Dublin. Why? Because Amazon are there, and they're taking space in the Amazon AWS. Wow. So the infrastructure now, even Adobe are outsourcing to those types of companies. So, and again, if Barry was here, did those 90 jobs, were they created because of the data center, or was it because Adobe were here? He'd nearly suggest because the data center was there. So they are a honeypot.
Absolutely.
Don't employ an awful lot of people directly, but to give a sense of 12 megawatts, that's about half of Waterford. Half of Waterford City is about 12 megawatts. But if you distribute that out on how many servers that are actually taken out of the field, it's probably 40 megawatts. So it's the power of the collective.
Absolutely.
So you have to put it always in context. That you can throw out the numbers, but you've got to say, well, how much is it saving?
Right. Cian, how about yourself? What do you see on the
Yeah,
horizon?
I think to build on what was just said by Joe and Gary, that balancing the stability but the flexibility to change is pretty crucial, as you know, the amount of money being invested in Ireland for data centers, but for technology investments in general is enormous. And companies wouldn't be doing that and certainly won't continue to do that unless we provide a stable infrastructure in the sense of regulatory and taxation infrastructure, and indeed political infrastructure as well. So the fact that you've got consistent messages coming out of Irish politicians from all parties in relation to taxation and regulation and so on is good. The fact that we seem to weather the storm about where the French in particular we're getting quite upset generally as a political thing about the fact that our tax rate was 12.5% and that we were taking jobs away from France and taking revenue away from France. I think there's a lot of short-sightedness about that, and there's a lot of things that in this, when you look at the international flows of money, of cash, there's a lot of political vested interests, and you know, the French were not, I'm not having to go with the French, but they were doing that because there was grassroots political opinion, or grassroots public opinion rather, that was saying that this was a bad thing and that shouldn't happen. Likewise, you see here in the US, the idea that jobs are being lost to other countries, and you know, you can't allow other countries to be tax havens, to take to allow companies to relocate and so on. But I think what's missed in a lot of that is that that if it doesn't happen in Ireland, it'll happen somewhere else. And if US companies are forced to keep their jobs in the US and not invest in Ireland or in any other jurisdiction, then what's going to happen is the US is going to become uncompetitive, and that other companies, or other countries rather, are going to become the next big thing. They're going to take advantage of what's being offered by Ireland and so on. So it's not a simple black and white issue, and I think in a lot of these cases. So it's important to, I suppose, look at the nuances and look at the benefits to the economies.
Absolutely. Stephen?
Yeah, I think taking off my level 3 hat for a minute, which hopefully will have a positive impact on my hairline, we've got to get vendor diversity, vendor cooperation. I think the biggest risk that you have is that you don't have enough options. You know, one of the things that occurred to me while we were talking about this was getting into Ireland is a lot about getting out of Ireland. How do you get out? How many different cable systems are there? How much diversity? How much vendor diversity? You know, I'd love to say that our fair share in Ireland is 100%, but I know better. Every one of the customers that you've talked about, the major customers that are in the DRT data centers, they don't want 1, 2, 3 vendors, they want 5. And for the government to continue to foster new vendors coming in, all of us win.
Absolutely. Ken, how about yourself?
Well, as an entrepreneur, I, of course, tend to be optimistic. And so I look at the opportunities. And I think that the opportunity has to do with there is a significant amount of infrastructure, how to utilize that. For example, today, one of my companies, AirTV.ie, is streaming this conference globally. I've had reports while I've been here from Ireland and from New Jersey, Texas, Washington, about what they're seeing. So that's an example where we're doing that in Ireland with content, both Irish content as well as live streaming television, if you want to see it on your tablet or smartphone. What we want to do is to go beyond that, and with the diaspora that you mentioned earlier, be able to connect Irish content to the global diaspora, utilizing the pipes to get out of Ireland, as you were saying. So I think that that's a kind of an opportunity, and within Ireland, utilizing the better bandwidth and broadband opportunities that are there. I think that too often in the past, people have thought that, well, compared to dial-up, my 48-to-1 contended Aircom connection seems pretty good most of the time. But that isn't broadband. And Ireland is coming out of that sort of backwater kind of view of bandwidth, I think, and into the really the 2010 and teens as we go along. And that's an opportunity, I think, as people in Ireland themselves understand that there is another world out there that they can get to.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate that, guys. With that, maybe we'll, actually, I think our bell is going here. Can we take a few questions from the crowd? Okay, maybe if we can take a couple questions from the crowd, that would be great at this point.
We may have answered everything.
We could have. There's a gentleman back here.
Hi, Dermot Mee with EFT Energy. I'm just wondering about energy conservation, cost of energy relative to your particularly development of data centers in Ireland. Is there a strong push in that space? Are you getting encouragement from the government? How is that working? Is it a concern?
So I'll talk to that relative to our development and some of the evolution and intelligence we've gathered as we've grown up at Digital. Customers are constantly looking for more efficient means of operating. And so for us, efficiency and being green and being environmentally sound is all relative back to savings and dollars and cost. So when you're talking about running a more efficient or green data center, what you're really talking about is you're saving money and power and power consumption. Ireland represents a particular climate that enables you to build very efficient data centers relative to heat rejection and cooling and your mechanical plant. And we use a metric called PUE, which is the sort of the efficiency factor between the amount of power you consume versus the amount of mechanical consumption you need to cool that data center. And Ireland represents significant savings in mechanical and energy costs in cooling data centers. We've been always at the forefront of trying to figure out the most efficient means of cooling the data center, being the most energy efficient as we possibly can. Although, of course, data centers are huge users of electricity. We can't control the amount of consumption that occurs for the chip or the box, but what we can control is the amount of energy consumption used to reject that heat and cool that data center. And so some of our contemporaries in the data center world and some of our customers have been very forward thinking in trying to become very efficient, save money on the mechanical side, of course become environmentally conscious and aware and green. But what we're finding is climate-wise, Ireland is very favorable towards delivering highly efficient data centers where we can take advantage of a very cool climate and utilize outside air and other climate factors that allow us to effectively run a less expensive data center.
Excellent. Maybe take one more from the crowd here. Any other? Okay. With that, we'll do a quick round of, if there's a tidbit of knowledge you'd like to share, what would that be in 5 words or less? How about let's do it that way. Based on our learnings, looking back on our history.
More players?
Joe, you want to try and kick that one off? What is the takeaway from today's discussions?
Digital Realty is going to have additional data center capacity in Ireland very soon.
Okay, great.
There's a lot of capital being invested in Ireland on infrastructure by the big guys.
Excellent.
I don't think I'll be able to restrict it to 5 words, but I'll do my best anyway. Ireland has an amazing combination, I think, of being a good all-rounder in terms of being a location to invest and being a location for technology companies to operate. And it's demonstrated it can do that through flexibility, transparency, and through changing with the times. I think it will continue to do that.
Great.
Level 3 will continue to partner with Ireland.
Excellent. Ken?
Tons of big bandwidth is available, and you shouldn't be talked out of that.
Open for business, right?
Yep.
He needs a fist bump there. All right, well, let's go ahead and thank the panelists here, Joe, Gary, Cian, Stephen, and Ken. Appreciate it.
You have to get me.
Thank you, Norman. That's the end of the cloud seminar here.
this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed the afternoon and found it as stimulating and interesting as I did. All that remains for me to do is to thank the ITLG again, and in particular, I'd like to thank the fantastic